What's up, dudes? Today we're gonna continue with the RX7. I'm gonna push it outside. We'll get outside, work in the sun, get things started. We're gonna get back on putting the interior back, basically. Try to get the driver's seat out and the driver door panel, a couple other things. Gotta find a few more parts. I got started yesterday afternoon. Put the passenger side door panel in, the kick panel in, all the little plastic pieces, all the little like around the door frame and around the window frame. I put most of the back end together, what I could find. I fastened down the plastic pieces that go behind the headlights. Found the tray that goes on the floor, covered it with the carpet. So I don't have a spare tire for it, but if I did, that's where it would go. I finished off the center console. So the interior is pretty well done, except for the driver's side. I didn't do the door panel on that side yet because the race seat is still in it. I've got to put the stock seat back in, which kind of brings me to an issue where I'm a pretty tall guy and it's a little tougher to fit in there, but I'm hoping that just leaning the seat back a little bit more will help my head clearance issue. And with the stock seat and stock steering wheel, it actually rubs on my legs, so it makes it really kind of tough to drive. But with the steering wheel quick release that I have on it, it brings it out a little further. Plus I have a deep dish wheel, and that helps it clear my body parts and limbs. Hopefully that's enough to get away with just taking out and putting the stock seat back in. And the main reason I need that Sparko race seat for the El Camino project.
You might think I'm crazy with my broken mind, but you won't bring me down tonight. 6th grade, innocence in my veins, fresh brain, wet dreams appear stains. 56K got me watching pixel porn frames, explain pain, mundane games and fame. I can feel the influence, but I know how to react. If I make the wrong choice, what could be the impact? Should I retract and keep my course on track, or succumb to all the forces that try to detract? And you might think I'm crazy with my broken mind, but you won't bring me down tonight.
So now with the car outside, I'm just gonna enjoy the process, put on some good tunes, and try to get the driver's side door panel in there. Try to get the driver's seat back in it, put everything back to mostly stock because I want to make it like a streetable car. And I definitely don't want any issues if I get pulled over. Thinking you get pulled over in a car with race seats in it, no door panels, an aftermarket wheel with obviously no horn button, and I was running a hydro brake before, it would look kind of bad. I want to avoid all that kind of headache and that kind of crap, which is part of the reason I put the stock bumper back on the car. Was the body kit one was banged up and it looked kind of like really obviously a drift car. I just want to make it nice and easy, not get too noticeable, kind of fly under the radar. There already is an RX-7 that makes it tough enough to fly underneath the radar. You can only make these things so quiet. It's a good thing it's black because it kind of hides in the shadows, you know what I mean? If it was bright red, I'm sure I'd probably get followed and pulled over all the time by the police. So I want to stay underneath the radar a bit as much as I can so I can just drive and enjoy the car and make it nice again. Got most of the stock interior back in the car. Everything looks good. It looks kind of stockish sort of thing. We'll take a quick look at it, all set and done, more or less. So, stock seat, stock door panels back in. When you close the door, it actually shuts now. Looks pretty uniform. Before we get into this stuff, let's take a look at the other side. Show you right quick. See from this side, looks pretty OEM, pretty stock, pretty don't give me a ticket, more or less. Aside from making it look pretty much stock and ready to go back on the street and kind of normal looking, I still have a pretty big front bumper on it. I wasn't able to find a stock bumper for a decent price that would make it worth it. So I'm sticking with that. The bash bars do a great job of holding it up. A big problem I had though was my flashers weren't working properly. Now if I'm driving around on the street and I'm at an intersection, cross corner to a police officer, well, I definitely want my flashers to work. An issue I had was one of the flashers wasn't working right. You could tell right away. It's kind of like most cars do now, I guess. When a flasher's not working good, if you put that flasher on, whether it's front or back that's not working, it'll flash very quick. And so I did the walk around, I checked it out, and there's definitely a wiring issue. I think it's because the plugs are old and drying and cracking, and there's places where the previous owner kind of wired them in, because this front bumper is not the proper one for the year of car. The marker lights that are in this bumper are for the later generation of the RX7 FD. The ones from my model are stock. They're like oval looking. So they didn't come on the car. These were aftermarket, put on the car before I bought it. So I'm assuming the guy that did the work previously chopped those wires and just spliced them together and make it work. And I don't think he really did it properly, because when the bumper was off and the wires were still attached, I could play around with the wires and squeeze the little spot that he had the heat wrap on, the shrink wrap, whatever it is. And that made the flashers instantly start working again. So I'm gonna guess that it's not soldered in there very solid. It's not really done properly. I don't know if I'm gonna jump into doing all that kind of wiring right now, but what I'm doing with the headlight off is trying to figure out how to get the high and low beams to work. I had a weird setup years ago, or 2 years ago, or whatever. Before all this crazy stuff happened, I took that thing off the road. I had a setup that worked high low beams, but I had to use like the fog light switch and then just a high beam on the steering column, and it was kind of weird. And I think I'm gonna have to revert to that again if I want to run both. The plus side, it's kind of cool. I can run my high beams and low beams at the same time. They're kind of okay, but still cool. I had wiring for the headlights, couldn't find it, not gonna work. Mounted the headlight back on, and now it's time to put the bumper back on and just basically give this thing a wash. Now my flashers are working, the stock interior is pretty much back in. Everything functions like it should for a street car to be street legal. The only thing, I have an issue with the sides of the bumpers. I have these little tab things, right, that I put in, and it holds the bumper but not good enough, so I'm gonna put another set. So just so you guys know what I'm talking about, it's these right here. They're from Password JDM. I don't know what kind of part number. There's a number. Anyways, if you want to like pause it and get that number or whatever, do your thing. But what these do is you get a little hook tab deal like this. Looks kind of stylish. And you put one on your fender too. And then it's held together with this little elastic that breaks after being out in the sun for more than a day. It's supposed to hold the bumper on. Now the issue that I have is that when I put the bumper on, it kind of gets sucked inside a little bit. And to eliminate that problem, usually you would put a screw in the back near the wheel, like right here. Put a screw in from the bumper right there. I'm trying to get away with using these. So what I'm gonna do is put another one of these right here. And hopefully that helps. And I'm gonna make a little something that's gonna stick down here that'll help hold the bumper out. You can see it there. I'm gonna put something here, like a bolt, it sticks down, that way the bumper rests on it and it stays flush with this stuff. You know what I'm saying? Solution. The installation of this part is very simple. You just take your drill, you figure out where you want to put the hole, push it through. Now I put a piece of masking tape on there. It's like painter's tape. Basically, the idea behind that was to kind of protect the body if the drill decides to dance around. Tape is sort of like, it's a little soft, so it kind of sinks in right away. Gives you a bit more traction for the get-go. I applied a lot of pressure also to get it started, to get it in the right spot so it didn't move around too much. Those fenders I'm not too concerned about. I got big plans for this car, and those stock fenders, it's not part of the plan. The tape was also there to help me kind of mark it out, kind of get it level. Could repeat the same exact process on the bumper itself, and that way I have two mounting points instead of the one, because the problem I had before was they would pull the front part of the bumper in on that first little loop attachment deal from Password JDM, but the back would kind of flop around, and as you saw, or as you see, I'm putting like stove bolts underneath, a couple of nuts on it, some big fat washers just to keep it sort of steady-ish, sort of kind of together. I And that way when it's bouncing around and moving, I'm hoping that the body stays kind of in line, level, flush with the fenders. Now I might have to do a little bit of adjustment on the inside because these pieces are a little finished. This one's still kind of together, but I'm gonna have to figure something out for that, possibly if it doesn't sit right. I'm just gonna bolt it on, I'm gonna see how it looks. Worst case, I'll probably just cut those out a little bit, or if I have to add some material, probably just do it very simple with some tape, something like that.